pilot vanished after reporting a UFO.
The disappearance of Frederick Valentich is certainly one of the great mysteries.
It's hovering and it's not an aircraft.
Notice here, Juliet.
On October 21st, 1978, a young Australian pilot named Frederick Valentich took off into the twilight, chasing a routine flight over the Bass Strait. Minutes later, he was gone, vanished mid-radio call, leaving behind a cryptic message about a strange, metallic object tailing him in the sky. No wreckage, no answers, just a haunting, "It's not an aircraft," followed by eerie metallic clanging. For 47 years, this moment fueled wild speculation. UFOs, crashes, hoaxes.
I've got a feeling that we definitely have an interference with another object, whether it was extraterrestrial or terrestrial, it remains to be seen in the future.
Grabbing the world's attention and refusing to let go. What happened to Fred that night? Was it a fluke, a tragedy, or something way beyond our understanding? Fast forward to 2025, and new evidence claims to finally crack this decades-old riddle wide open. This isn't just another cold case. It's a story that's kept us guessing, and now, maybe, we're on the edge of knowing. So, how does a mystery this stubborn get solved after all this time? Let's dive into one of aviation's strangest tales, step by step, and find out what's been hiding in the shadows of that fateful night. Frederick Valentich wasn't a household name before 1978, but his story starts in a quiet corner of Melbourne, Australia. Born June 9, 1958, in Werribee, Fred grew up in a working-class family. Dad Guido, an Italian immigrant mechanic, Mom Alberta, keeping 4 kids in line. He was the oldest, a lanky kid with dark hair and a spark that didn't fit the dusty streets of his suburb. Werribee back then was no paradise. Gravel roads, modest brick homes, a place where dreams had to fight to take off. For Fred, that fight was literal. He wanted to fly. Planes weren't a passing fancy. They were his lifeline, a way to break free from the ordinary. His early years were hands-on. Guido's garage was Fred's playground, oil-stained hands, wrenches, the hum of engines. By his teens, he'd swapped toy planes for the real thing, joining the Air Training Corps, a youth wing of the Royal Australian Air Force. It was strict, uniforms, drills, but it gave him his first taste of wings. He'd spend hours learning navigation, soaking up stories from pilots who'd seen the world. Fred wasn't a bookworm, though. School was a slog. Math tripped him up. Science felt like chains. He left without stellar grades, but his eyes were on the sky, not a diploma. The RAAF was his big shot. A career there meant respect, adventure, a uniform his dad could brag about. He applied twice, 1960s rejection, then again in his late teens. Both times the answer was no. Inadequate qualifications, they said, pointing to those shaky marks. It hit hard. Guido later told reporters Fred moped for weeks, but he didn't quit. Civilian flying became Plan B. Moorabbin Airport, a scrappy hub 15 miles south of Melbourne, was his new turf. Lessons weren't cheap, $20 an hour in 70s money, a chunk for a kid scraping by. He worked odd jobs, saved every cent, and by 1977, he'd earned his private pilot's license. At 20, he'd logged 150 hours, decent, not dazzling, and nabbed a Class 4 instrument rating, letting him fly at night if the weather held. Fred wasn't flawless up there. He'd failed commercial exams, navigation stumped him, plotting courses over maps wasn't his gift. He'd had brushes with trouble, too. Once, he drifted into Sydney's restricted airspace, a rookie move that earned a slap on the wrist. Another time, he buzzed too low over water, testing limits. Instructors at Moorabbin saw the pattern. Eager, driven, but rough. He'd get there, one told investigators later, but he needed polish. Still, Fred kept pushing, renting planes when he could, building hours toward a future he could taste. Off the tarmac, he was a regular guy with quirks. Rhonda Rushton, his 16-year-old girlfriend, met him through friends in '77. She was smitten. He had a quiet intensity, a lopsided grin. Flying was all he talked about, she'd say later. He'd sketch planes on napkins, ramble about routes. Rhonda also dropped a gem. Fred was into UFOs. Not tinfoil hat crazy, but hooked. He'd seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, hit theaters in '77, and couldn't shut up about it. "What if I saw one?" he'd ask her, half laughing. At the airfield, he'd toss it around too. Mates called it his space bug. Was it just chatter? Maybe, but it stuck with people. October 21st, 1978, was no grand mission. Fred rented a Cessna 182L VH-DSJ from Southern Air Services at Moorabbin. Single engine, reliable, a four-seater he'd flown solo. The plan, 125 nautical miles to King Island, a dot in the Bass Strait. Why? Depends who you ask. His family said friends waited there. Others swore he wanted crayfish to sell. A pilot's side hustle. He wasn't clear with air traffic control, just filed a flight plan and checked the plane. Fuel tanks full. 300 liters, 5 hours worth. Weather, clear, light winds, a golden evening. He grabbed a Coke, bantered with a mechanic about oil, stashed 4 life jackets aboard. At 6:19 p.m., sun fading, he taxied out, got clearance, and lifted off. A young dreamer, not perfect, heading into a night that'd rewrite his story. Fred Valentich's Saturday, October 21st, 1978, started routine. By nightfall, it was anything but. At 6:19 p.m., he rolled down Moorabbin's runway in that Cessna 182L, a sturdy bird with a fresh paint job, white with red stripes. Destination, King Island, 125 nautical miles northwest across the Bass Strait. It was a training flight, a chance to log night hours, maybe grab crayfish or passengers. His story wobbled, depending who he told. The sky was a pilot's dream, clear, 15-mile visibility, winds whispering at 5 to 10 knots. Sunset hit at 6:34 p.m., turning the coast gold as Fred climbed to 4,500 feet, chasing the dusk. The Cessna wasn't some rickety jalopy. Built in '66, VH-DSJ had a Continental 0470 engine, 230 horsepower, 6 cylinders, a growl you could trust. Cruising speed, 130 knots, about 150 miles per hour. Range, 900 miles with full tanks. Fred had 5 hours worth, checked himself. 4 life jackets sat in back, standard for overwater hops. The Strait's 50-degree chill wasn't forgiving. First 47 minutes? Smooth. At 7 p.m., he radioed Melbourne flight service over Cape Otway, a jagged cliff jutting into the sea. Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne, passing Cape Otway at 4,500, he said, voice even. Controller Steve Roby logged it, textbook stuff. Then, 7:06 p.m., the world tilted. Fred's voice crackled back. Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. Any known traffic below 5,000? Roby scanned, no blips. No known traffic, he replied. Fred's tone shifted. Seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000. Roby blinked. Nothing was scheduled. What type? He asked. Fred, can't affirm. 4 bright lights, like landing lights. Coming toward me now. The Cessna's nav lights, red, green, white, were dim. This was glaring. It passed over, maybe 1,000 feet above, Fred said. Moving fast, very fast. Roby, speed estimate? Fred, faster than me, can't tell. It escalated quick. It's back, Fred said, edge creeping in, orbiting above, 3 times now. Roby. Position? Fred. Overhead, then east. Long shape, metallic, shiny. Then the bomb. Melbourne. It's not an aircraft. Roby. Say again? Fred. Not an aircraft. Don't know what. By 7:10, it got stranger. Hovering now. Green light. Bright green, he said. Voice taut but clear. Roby. Dimensions? Fred. Big. Longer than a 737. That's 100 feet. His Cessna was 28. Playing some game with me, he added, irritation mixing with nerves. Then, engines rough idling, coughing. The 0470 doesn't hiccup easy. Fuel issues, maybe, but he'd checked it. Holding 4,500, he said. Roby. Other aircraft? Fred. Negative. Just this. At 7:12 p.m., 6 minutes in, it peaked. Melbourne. Approaching from the east, Fred said, urgency spiking. It's not an aircraft. Mid-word, a 17-second blast of metallic clanging, grinding, scraping, like a junkyard collapsing. Then, nothing. Roby. Delta Sierra Juliet, do you read? Silence. Come in. Dead air.
Juliet, madam. Delta Sierra Juliet.
The transcript, released later, is raw. Fred's voice climbing, that noise, then a void. Ground reports hit fast. A fisherman near Apollo Bay saw a big light, green glow, darting over water. 7 o'clock-ish. A family on the Great Ocean Road heard a hum. Saw lights weaving, red, green, too fast for planes. A Flinders local spotted a long shape heading out to sea. 50-plus UFO calls flooded in that night. Green, erratic, everywhere. Natural explanations? Matit Stromlo, 300 miles off, logged a meteor stream, 10 to 15 per hour. Meteors glow green, sure, but they streak, not hover. Fred's orbiting and hovering don't match. Engine trouble's odd, too. Fuel was clean, no prior gripes. Bird strike? Rare at 4,500 feet over water. Weather? Clear. Calm. No turbulence. Flight service reacted fast. By 7:33, no check-in at King Island. Distress phase on. Search kicked off. Planes, ships, targeting 20 miles shy of his goal. The strait's currents, 2 to 3 knots, could shift debris, but not vanish it. Roby replayed the tape, stunned. That noise. Crash? Interference? Something hitting him? 6 minutes from calm to chaos, and the night was just starting. The Bass Strait isn't your average puddle. It's a 190-mile wide, 120-mile-long beast between Australia and Tasmania, shallow at 160 feet average, 260 max. Fred Valentich flew into it that night, and it swallowed him whole. But here's the thing. It's been doing that for over a century. Nicknamed the Bass Strait Triangle, this stretch has a rap sheet. Ships, planes, crews vanishing like they never existed. It's not just Fred's story. It's a place with a habit of making things disappear, and the deeper you look, the weirder it gets. Picture it. Open to the Southern Ocean's wrath, hemmed by Victoria's cliffs and Tasmania's wild shore. Shallow seas mean waves stack up fast. 10-knot winds whip up 10-footers when deeper waters yawn. Storms hit like freight trains. 60-knot gusts, 20-foot swells. Chaos in hours. Pilots get no favors, no peaks or towers, just water and sky blending into a void at night. Fred had clear weather, but this place doesn't always need a tantrum to bite. It's got a history that'd give anyone pause. Take 1858. The HMS Sappho, a Royal Navy brig, sails in, 120 aboard. Seasoned crew, dogs too. Gone, no distress, no debris, just a blank. Papers screamed mystery, waves, mutiny, no clue. Then 1901, SS Federal, coal hauler, 31 men, Melbourne to Tasmania. Vanishes. No radio then, no trace, until 2019. Divers spot it off King Island, 118 years late. 5 years on, SS Ferdinand Fischer, German freighter, pulls the same stunt. 1906, lost, nothing. 1920s, a nightmare trifecta. SS Amelia J. disappears, 12 aboard. SS Southern Cross searches, 22 crew goes missing. Some wreckage later. An Airco DH-9A plane joins the hunt. 2 pilots, poof, 3 in one go. Then, 1934, de Havilland Express. Miss Hobart, new airliner, 10 aboard, 7 men, 2 women, a kid. Clear day, 20 minutes over water, gone. Oil and a wheel wash up, rest, nada. World War II ramps it up. RAF East Sail near Fred's Path loses 17 planes. Wirraways, Ansons, Beauforts, on training runs, 42 to 45. Most leave no mark. One pilot in 44 radios a bronze disc pacing him, cuts out, never seen. Another, 43, reports a dark shape tailing. Silence. Shoddy planes? Maybe, but the pattern's off. Civilians saw stuff too. 40s logs from Wonthaggi, Flinders, glowing orbs, zigzagging lights, not RAF toys. By the 70s, it's still kicking. 1972, yacht Charleston sinks off Wilson's promontory, 4 aboard, hull later, no bodies. 76, Piper Cherokee crashes near King Island. Pilot gone, bits found, no call. Then 78, Fred's year. UFO fevers raging, 200 sightings logged, silver discs, green lights. October 20th, a farmer near Apollo Bay sees a cigar-shaped thing hovering. October 22nd, dozens call in. Lights dancing over the strait. Too fast, too weird. That night, Fred's not alone. Witnesses from Cape Otway to Flinders report green glows, erratic movers, a plane with a light diving. A trucker near Lorne sees 2 crafts tangling, one chasing. Timings 7 to 7:30 p.m., Fred's window. MT Stromlo logs meteors, 10 to 15 hourly, but they don't tail planes. This wasn't a fluke. The strait's been humming for decades. What's the deal? Weather's a suspect. The roaring 40s, Antarctic winds, slam in year-round, flipping calm to carnage. Shallow depths juice it. 10-foot waves here when deep seas sleep. Navigation's a gamble. No landmarks, just stars or gauges. Compasses twitch near Tasmania's granite, though science downplays magnetic quirks. Skeptics say it's stats, a busy route, old tech, human error. Over 50 losses since 1850. Ships, planes, lives say otherwise. Fred's night was calm, but the straits got a vibe, a pull that doesn't care about forecasts. Fred's radio cuts at 7:12 p.m., October 21st, 1978. 17 seconds of metallic clanging, then silence. He's due at King Island by 7:33, 125 miles, 2 hours tops. When he doesn't check in, Melbourne Flight Service smells trouble. Steve Roby, the controller on duty, flags it by 7:45. Distress phase, step 1. We're worried. Hours later, it's alert phase. He's gone. What follows is a monster search, one of Australia's biggest, air, sea, non-stop grind. 4 days later, they've got nothing, not a scrap. How's that even possible? It starts fast. By dawn October 22nd, 8 civilian planes, Pip Airs, Cessnas, whatever's fueled, lift off from Moorabbin and Essendon. The RAF rolls out a Lockheed P-3 Orion, 4 engines, radar that spots a dime from 10 miles, infrared for heat. Ships pile in, Navy boats, fishing rigs, a ferry yanked from its route. Over 1,000 square miles get scoured, Cape Otway to King Island, deep into the strait. The Orion flies tight grids, 500 feet up, low enough to see a floating shoe. Boats sweep below, crews with binos, sun glinting off waves. This isn't a quick peek. It's a war effort running till October 25th. Weather's perfect. Clear skies, 10-mile visibility, winds at 5 to 10 knots, water like glass. Fred's Cessna had 5 hours fuel. Checked at Moorabbin, tanks topped. 4 life jackets aboard. Orange, screaming to be seen. Day 1, they lock his last spot, 20 miles southeast of King Island, 38 degrees 50 minutes south. 143 degrees 50 minutes east, timed from radio. An oil slick pops up 18 miles north of the island. Shiny, promising. Plane crash? They scoop it. Marine diesel, boat junk, bust. Day 2, wider net. Orion's radar pings metal, buoys, logs, zilch big. Ships hit shallows. 160 feet average, 260 max. Not deep enough to hide a plane forever. Day 3, a flicker. A private pilot, unrelated, flies near Flinders Island, 50 miles east. Submerged shape, plane-like, he radios, circling back. Gone. Water's tricks, light bending over cold currents. Searchers chase it. Empty. By October 25th, they're stumped. Suspended, pending leads, the call goes. 4 days, hundreds of hours, nada. A Cessna's no ghost, metal frame, fabric skin, floats if it ditches right. At 4,500 feet, Fred had glide room. Pilots train for water landings. Hard crash? Debris scatters. Wings, seats, fuel cans. Orion's tech, used later for yacht wrecks, should have caught something. Nothing. Currents run 2 to 3 knots. Shift stuff, sure, but not overnight. Straits shallow zones, 50 to 80 feet near shore. Diveable, yet no hits. In 1983, a Cessna cowl flap washes up on Flinders. Serial close to VHDSJ's, not exact. Fred's? Maybe. The Strait's a junkyard, dozens of wrecks since the 40s. Back in '78, searchers whispered, "Sank too fast? Taken?" UFO chatter lingered. Fred's words kept it alive. Witnesses that night, a boat captain near Cape Otway saw lights falling, 7:15-ish. A King Island local heard a drone, then quiet. No fireball, no smoke, logged, but dead ends. Fred's family pushed. Guido begged for divers, but no target, no dice. The effort was huge, hundreds of people, top gear, yet it's a blank page. Was the area too vast? Did currents play Houdini? Or did something else erase him? It's not just a lost plane. It's a void that begs questions. Meet Roy Manifold, a Melbourne plumber who didn't know he'd snap history. October 21st, 1978. He's at Crayfish Bay near Cape Otway, 40 miles from Fred's last ping. Late afternoon, sun's dipping. Roy's got his tripod out, shooting sunset over the Bass Strait. No pro, just a guy with a Pentax 35mm 400 ASA film auto exposure. 6 frames, seconds apart, chasing the light. He's not scanning the sky, just framing the horizon. Days later, he develops them, and 2 shots freeze him. Frame 4, a dark lump roiling the water, something breaking through. Frame 6, a metallic object, solid, mid-air, hazy cloud trailing. Minutes before Fred's 7:06 p.m. call. Coincidence? Nope. Cape Otway's under Fred's path, Moorabbin to King Island, northwest line. Roy's clicking 6:50 to 7:05 p.m., right before any traffic hits the radio. He doesn't see it live, too focused, but his lens grabs it. Frame 4's lump could be water shifting, something heavy, fast. Frame 6's object? No blur, no glitch, metal, structured. He shows mates, then the press. Boom, it's everywhere. Ground Saucer Watch, Phoenix UFO crew, gets them in '79. Bonafide unknown flying object, moderate size, vapor or exhaust residue. Big words, the pics aren't HD, more tease than portrait. Dr. Richard Haynes, ex-NASA, jumps in, smudges, bugs, flares. Nope. Solid, real. Fred's up there, 4,500 feet, 20 miles out, shiny, metallic, green light, orbiting. Roy's shot fits, metal, haze like motion or heat, size. Lens math says 25 to 30 meters. Fred's Cessna is 10. Witnesses pile on. Apollo Bay, 7:10 p.m. A guy sees a plane with a green light diving steep. Great Ocean Road family. Lights weaving, red and green, too quick. Flinders fisherman, long craft, seaward, 7:00-ish. 50-plus UFO calls that night. Green, erratic, Victoria to Tasmania. Roy's timing's nuts, right when Fred's tangled with whatever it was. Skeptics swing, plane reflection, wrong angle, too high. Balloon, no launches, no drift. Glitch, negatives are clean. Melbourne labs, US, Japan, all agree. Haynes, physical object, no doubt. Ufologists go bananas. Fred's, not an aircraft, is gospel. Roy's, no kook. Stunned as anyone, other shots normal. Sea, sky, clean. Just 4 and 6 scream. Photos hit fate, UFO report, TV. Experts bicker. Cloud, metal, Roy. Didn't see it till the film. Size fuzzes. 30 meters at a mile, 20 closer. That haze, exhaust, energy, moving or parked. A frozen second in a wild night. Fred Valentich's vanishing wasn't a one-night wonder. It's been a 47-year itch. A young pilot, a Cessna, a radio call cut by clanging. No wreckage, no Fred, just a void. From 1978 on, theories piled up. UFOs, crashes, hoaxes, even sharks. Yep, sharks. Everyone's had a stab, from cops to conspiracy nuts. Let's roll through the big ones, see what held water, and why this case stuck like glue. UFOs lead the pack. Fred's, it's not an aircraft. Shiny, metallic, green light, orbiting, lit a fire. That night, 50-plus sightings, green glows, weird shapes, Cape Otway to Tasmania. Apollo Bay, plane with a light diving. Flinders, cigar-shaped craft. 78 was UFO Central. 200 reports. June discs in Queensland. September lights over Sydney. Fred loved it. Told Rhonda he'd kill to see one. Fresh off close encounters. Abducted? Zapped? Blasted? Believers said yes. Ground saucer watch called Roy's photo proof. No wreckage sealed it. Planes don't vanish unless something grabs them. Crash next. Department of Transport's go-to, engine quit. Fred ditched. Rough idling, fuel clog, choke, stall. At 4,500 feet, he could glide. But night over waters brutal. 50-degree seas, 2 to 3 knot currents. Cessna's buoyant, sure, but sinks if smashed. Metallic noise, crash, wings tearing, no oil, no jackets, 4 aboard, gone. Straits shallow, 160 feet, but deep enough if it broke. Search found zip. Odd, but not impossible. Disorientation tags along. Expert Guido Belgiorno Nettis in the 80s. Fred saw his own lights reflected, flipped upside down, spiraled. Clanging's the mic over impact. He tracked it too well, though, lucid, not slurring. Hoax time. Fred staged it, ditched, ran off. Money woes? New life? He flip-flopped. Friends or crayfish? No cash pulled, no sightings, no plane stashed. Guido fought it. Fred lived for flying. Suicide? Engine trouble? Dive? Exit? Clanging fits, but his voice was tense, not broken. No note, no signs. Wild ones. Sharks ate him. The age, 79. Jackets and all. Nuts. Birds. Pelican through the windshield? Not at 4,500 feet. Weather. Clear. No dice. 90s mixed it. UFO crash. Military tech RAAF nearby. Drug run. Each had fans, each had gaps. By 2025, Frederick Valentich's disappearance isn't just a dusty file, it's a live wire again. And it's all thanks to a book that hits like a thunderclap. Mark Greenwood's The Vanishing, published in 2024 by Hachette Australia, doesn't tiptoe around. It storms in, claiming to finally solve what happened that night over the Bass Strait in 1978. Greenwood's no stranger to cracking open history. His books like The Legend of Moondyne Joe and Ned Kelly's Helmet dig into Australia's gritty past with a sharp eye. But this is his heaviest swing yet. A 47-year-old aviation riddle wrapped in UFO whispers, and he's got the tools, the evidence, and the guts to say it's done. So what's the deal with this breakthrough? Let's rip it apart, layer by layer, and see what's got everyone talking. Greenwood doesn't mess with fluff. He rebuilds October 21st, 1978, from the ground up. Fred's flight kicks off at 6:19 p.m. from Moorabbin Airport, Cessna 182L, VH-DSJ, headed 125 nautical miles to King Island. By 7:06 p.m., he's over Cape Otway, radioing Melbourne Flight Service about a large aircraft with 4 bright lights, metallic and shiny, moving fast. 6 minutes later, 7:12 p.m., it's not an aircraft. Then 17 seconds of metallic clanging, and he's gone. Greenwood's got the raw stuff: Department of Transport files, the full radio transcript, even handwritten notes from Steve Roby, the controller who heard it live. This isn't a summary. It's a forensic snapshot. Every word Fred said laid bare, every pause timed. He's not guessing. He's got the paper trail. But Greenwood goes deeper than the flight log. He tracks down Fred's inner circle, people who knew him, not just the headlines. Rhonda Rushton, his girlfriend back in '78, is in her 60s now, living quietly in Melbourne's outer suburbs. Over coffee with Greenwood, she spills details that never hit the press. Fred's UFO obsession wasn't a passing quip. He'd borrowed library books on Roswell, dog-eared pages on Area 51, asked her late one night, "What if they're really out there?" She'd laughed it off then, but it stuck. Fred's dad, Guido, handed over diaries too, scribbled entries from September '78, sketches of saucer shapes with notes like, "Saw one in a dream, green glow." Small, personal stuff, but it paints a guy whose head was already in the stars before he flew into that night. The crown jewel? Roy Manifold's photo, frame 6, snapped minutes before Fred's first call. Roy's at Crayfish Bay, tripod out, catching sunset over the strait, 6:50 to 7:05 p.m. Frame 4's got that dark lump in the water, something breaking or sinking. Frame 6 shows a metallic object, solid, hovering, with a hazy trail. Greenwood doesn't just nod at it, he tears it open with 2024 tech. He's got AI photo enhancement, pulling details from Roy's negatives, stored in a Melbourne archive since '79, scanned at 4K resolution. The object's 25 to 30 meters wide, textured like brushed steel, with an angular edge and a faint green shimmer. That haze? Thicker on one side, tapering off, motion, heat, or exhaust? Dr. Richard Haynes, ex-NASA photo analyst, weighs in again. Same guy who vouched in '79, now with sharper tools. Not a glitch, not a plane. Solid, physical, he tells Greenwood. Labs in Sydney and Tokyo back it, negatives clean, no tampering. This isn't a maybe, it's a thing, caught mid-sky. Greenwood doubles down with witnesses, 20 tracked from that night, names and addresses, not just vague quotes. Peter Booth, a mechanic near Apollo Bay, 20 miles south of Cape Otway, was smoking on his porch around 7:10 p.m. He saw a plane, low hum, red nav light, with a green glow above it, diving at 45 degrees toward the water. Thought it was crashing, he tells Greenwood, but the light kept moving, too fast. Sue O'Connor, driving the Great Ocean Road with her husband, caught 2 lights tangling, one red, one green, like they were fighting. Timing's tight, 7:06 to 7:12 p.m., Fred's window. Greenwood maps it. 15 sightings along his path, Cape Otway to King Island, cross-checked with 78 police logs, 50-plus reports that weekend, green dominating. MT Stromlo's meteor shower, 10 to 15 per hour. Logged, but Greenwood's team, hired astronomers, say meteors streak, not hover or orbit. These accounts aren't new, but he nails them down. Dates, sketches, voices, making them rock solid. The Bass Strait's dark history gets a full chapter. Greenwood calls it Australia's Bermuda Triangle, 50 vanishings since 1858. HMS Sappho, 1858, 120 aboard, gone, no distress. SS Federal, 1901, 31 crew, lost till 2019 divers find it. De Havilland Express, Miss Hobart, 1934, 10 passengers. Oil slick, one wheel, nothing else. World War II, 17 RAF planes from East Sail vanish on training runs. Wirraways, Ansons, no traces. He digs up a gem. RAF vet John Maitland, 73 now, flew the Strait in 76. Over coffee in Geelong, Maitland tells him, "Silver disc paced me at 5,000 feet. 10 minutes, no radar hit, then bolted." Greenwood ties it to 78's UFO wave. 200 sightings logged, October a hotspot. Fred's not a fluke. He's a thread in a tapestry of weird. Here's the meat, Greenwood's theory. Fred encountered a UFO, likely extraterrestrial, and it ended him. He doesn't go full sci-fi, no beaming up, no little green men. It's physics, not fantasy. Fred's faster than me, 500 knots maybe, puts this thing out of Cessna League. Proximity, 1,000 feet above, could have messed with his plane. The 0470's magnetos, unshielded, are ripe for electromagnetic interference. Think car engines stalling near UFOs in old reports. That rough idling and coughing, magneto glitch, spark cut, engine choking. The metallic clanging, 17 seconds of it, gets a 2024 overhaul. Sydney Uni audio engineers run spectrograms, high-pitched scrapes, low rumbles, non-natural frequencies one calls unlike any crash I've heard. Collision? Wake turbulence tearing the wings? Greenwood posits both. Something fast, close, physical. No wreckage? Greenwood's got an answer. Straight currents, 2 to 3 knots, plus a twist. The UFO cleaned up. Not wild. He cites 1960s cases, like the Kecksburg, Pennsylvania Acorn crash, where debris vanished fast. Speculative, sure, but he grounds it. A plane doesn't disappear in 160-foot water without a shred. Searchers had Orion radar, boats, perfect weather. He brings in Dr. Elena Martinez, a Melbourne physicist who models it. Her 2024 paper, tied to the book, says a 500-knot object, 1,000 feet up, could flip a Cessna with wake vortex, turbulence snapping aluminum like twigs. No RAAF jets flew. Logs checked. Martinez calculates 30-meter craft, 2 tons, moving that fast, creates a 50-meter wake cone. Fred's 4,500-foot altitude, light 2,500-pound plane? Done. She tests it. Wind tunnel, Cessna mock-up. Results match. Flip, dive, shred. Greenwood digs into weather too, small but telling. A Tasmanian ionosonde station 100 miles south logged ionospheric anomalies that night. Radio wave bounces off kilter, hinting at atmospheric charge. Rare, not impossible. UFO reports often tag electrical quirks. He's not saying proof, just context. The clanging's layered. Could be exhaust discharge, not just impact. He skips abduction, too far, but leaves it open. Crashed, sank, or snatched. The UFO's the linchpin. Real, there, deadly. The vanishing isn't theory alone. It's a machine. Greenwood's got 300 pages, 50 photos, Roy's shots, maps, spectrograms. He unearths a 1978 transport memo, buried till now. Unidentified object probable, natural unlikely. Suppressed then, explosive now. Roy's son, Paul, shows him the Pentax, still works, lens pristine. Book hits shelves October 2024, 50,000 sold by March 2025. #1 in Aussie nonfiction. Podcasts, Mysteries Unearthed, The Unexplained, Rip It Apart, X Lights Up, Jakvalentich Solved Trends, 10,000 posts in a week. Greenwood Tours, Sydney Bookshops, Melbourne Radio, Cool, Steady. Evidence says it's a UFO. Deal with it. Greenwood's bombshell splits the room. Believers, UFO nuts, Fred's fans, eat it up. Fred's not an aircraft, Roy's photo, 50-plus sightings, proof ETs nabbed him. Skeptics, scientists, pilots, push back. Disorientation, crash, no aliens needed. Believers point to no wreckage. Planes leave stuff. Skeptics say currents hit it. Witnesses? Mass hysteria versus real data. Greenwood's tech, AI, audio, sways some. Others call it hype. It's a tug of war, facts versus faith. And it's not done yet.